The range opened at 0700, but he was there by 0645 every time. Never a word more than needed, just a nod to the clerk. A slow scratch of his name on the sign-in sheet. Elliot J. No rank, no small talk, no how's the weather. He'd tip his faded trucker cap, the kind with no logo, just a worn-out navy brim, and walk to lane 9, the one farthest from the chatter and the Bluetooth speakers blasting bravado. His boots, scuffed but polished, clicked softly on the concrete. Same outfit every day, a gray flannel shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows. Jeans that had seen a decade, and a canvas range bag slung low in his left hand. Inside, just the essentials: a single pistol case, one box of .45 ACP, and a dented thermos that never left his side. The regulars called him Gramps, or the old-timer. Most figured he was just a retired mechanic, maybe a farmer, burning through his pension 1 round at a time. They'd smirk about his single target, his 30-round limit. How he'd pack up and leave without picking up his brass. But the range staff saw something else: the way he scanned the room without moving his head. The way his hands never fumbled. The way he seemed to measure the air itself before firing. His shots weren't loud or flashy, but they were precise. Each one landing like a whispered truth. His target was always tight, the kind of grouping that made you stop and stare, though most didn't notice. They were too busy joking, betting, or posting their groups online. That morning, the range was buzzing. A group of young Marines, fresh from Paris Island, rolled in, full of swagger and stories. One of them, a wiry kid named Connor with a sniper badge on his duffel, set up 3 lanes down from Elliot. He was sharp, cocky, but observant, the kind who could spot real skill through the noise. At first, he barely glanced at the old man, just another civilian plinking away. But then he heard it: the rhythm. Not the bang, not the recoil, but the cadence. 3 shots pause, 2 shots pause. Every round deliberate, every group a perfect cluster. Connor stole a glance. The old man's stance was old school, elbows locked just right, grip steady as stone. He wasn't shooting to impress. He was shooting to know. Then Connor saw it. As Elliot reloaded, his sleeve shifted, revealing a faded tattoo on his forearm. No eagle, no skull, no flag, just a number, 3 digits, and a small insignia Connor recognized from a history brief. He froze. That wasn't ink you got at a parlor. It was ink you earned, the kind that came with stories nobody told. Watched Elliot fire another string, each shot punching the same hole, then stepped closer, curiosity outweighing his usual confidence. "Excuse me, sir," Connor said, voice low. "That tattoo? That's Force Recon, isn't it? Vietnam era?" Elliot didn't flinch. He fired his last round, set the pistol down with care, and turned to meet Connor's eyes. No smile, no nod, just a single word. Once, the word hit like a quiet thunderclap. Connor stood still, his pulse quickening. Once wasn't an answer, it was a door cracked open just enough to warn you not to push. He nodded, stepped back to his lane, and resumed shooting, but his rhythm was off now, his focus split. His buddies didn't notice, still laughing, comparing groups, making bets. One of them, a stocky kid named Ruiz, leaned over, grinning. "Yo, Connor, you see Gramps over there? Still hitting paper, huh?" Connor didn't answer. His eyes kept drifting to lane 9, where Elliot reloaded with a calm that felt heavier than the range's noise. Mag in, slide forward, check, fire. No rush, no flare. Just a man who'd done this 1,000 times before the world had apps to track your shots. The grouping tightened, as always, and after each shot, Elliot paused, like he was seeing something beyond the target. 15 minutes later, Elliot finished his box of 30 rounds. Not one strayed outside the bullseye. He pulled a worn cloth from his bag, wiped down his pistol, and started packing up. Connor hesitated, then stepped over again. "If you don't mind, when did you serve?" Elliot set the cloth down, locked the slide back, and looked at Connor. His eyes were steady, not cold, just calm. 65 to 73, he said. "Recon, Southeast Asia." Connor swallowed. That lined up with the tattoo with the stories he'd heard in training missions. So deep in the jungle, they didn't have names, only code numbers. Operations where radios went silent, where men came back different, if they came back at all. "You were in Cambodia?" Connor asked, voice barely above a whisper. Elliot gave a half nod, among other places. The range seemed to shrink around. The laughter from the other lanes faded, not in volume, but in weight. A few of Connor's buddies caught his posture, the way he stood a little straighter, and they started watching. One whispered, "What's up with Connor?" but got no answer. "Did you ever work with DevGru?" Connor asked, referring to the SEAL's elite unit. Elliot's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Not back then. "We all did a bit of everything. You moved, you survived, or you didn't." Connor grinned, but it was respectful, not cocky. "My CO told us about an op in 70. Night extraction, heavy fire. The lead got hit, but carried his team out. They said it was classified for decades." Elliot didn't blink. A lot was classified. Back then, the door closed again, not slammed, just shut. He stood, stretched his shoulders, and zipped his range bag. Connor stepped aside, instinctive, like you would for a CO. A few other shooters glanced over, curious now, quiet now. Something in Connor's stance told them this wasn't just some old guy. As Elliot turned to leave, Connor did something he hadn't done since basic. He snapped to attention. No irony, no joke, just respect. Elliot paused, looked back, and studied him for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pressed something into Connor's hand, a coin. Heavy worn, with a Force Recon insignia on one side and a single word on the other. "Endure. Keep it quiet," Elliot said, voice low. "Earn it then." He walked away, thermos under one arm, range bag in hand, disappearing into the morning light like he'd never been there. Connor stood frozen, the coin's weight grounding him. He'd seen fakes before, guys wearing unearned patches, boasting about missions they'd never run. This was different. This coin wasn't a trinket. It was a relic. The kind that didn't exist unless you'd been there. "Yo, Connor, you..." "Good," Ruiz called from a few lanes over. Connor didn't answer right away. He turned, holding out the coin without a word. His buddies crowded around, expecting a quip, but when they saw the insignia, they went silent. Force Recon 1 whispered, "Vietnam." "No way. It's real," Connor said. "Eyes on the empty lane 9? Who gave it to you?" Ruiz asked. Connor looked at the spot where Elliot had stood. "The guy you all ignored." No one spoke. The silence said enough. Connor walked to the front desk, coin still in hand. The clerk, sipping an energy drink, glanced up. "Everything okay?" Connor set the coin down gently. "You know this guy Elliot?" The clerk squinted, then tapped. His keyboard. "J. Elliot. Been coming here for years. It's always cash. No email, no fuss. Marked do not publish for any recognition stuff. It's weird, right?" He paused, scrolling. "Huh. Says he never misses a session. Always lane 9. You know why?" Connor asked. The clerk shrugged. "One time I thanked him for his service. He just looked at me and said, 'I didn't do it for thanks.' Kinda shut me up." Connor didn't laugh. He picked up the coin and walked outside. That night, he couldn't sleep. He fired up his laptop, dug into declassified records, and pieced it together. Hours later, in a buried report from 1970, he found it a single line, no fanfare. SGT. James Elliot, Force Recon, Cambodia, extraction under fire, saved 6. Wounded 3 times, declined Silver Star, asset deemed critical, now silent. Silent, that was the code. You did the job, you didn't talk. You didn't write memoirs or post threads. You carried it quiet as a shadow for decades. And Elliot had carried it to that range, to that box of .45, to that flannel shirt and faded cap. The next week, Elliot returned, same as always, same truck, same time, same quiet steps across the gravel. He signed the sheet, nodded to the clerk, and headed to lane 9. But this time the air was different. Connor was there early, and so were two of his buddies. Waiting near the back, they didn't speak, didn't crowd him, just stood a little straighter, gave a nod, and watched with the respect you'd give a legend. Elliot set up his target, adjusted his stance, and fired. The range was still loud, but the tone had shifted less. Chatter, less ego, more focus. Halfway through his second string, Connor stepped over, not casual, but deliberate. He waited for Elliot to finish, then held out a fresh box of .45 ammo. Figured 30 wasn't enough today, sir. Elliot looked at the box, then at Connor. For the first time, he gave a nod that lingered, reloaded, and kept firing, the rhythm as steady as ever. Later, as the gunpowder haze thinned, Elliot sat on the bench, sipping from his thermos. One by one, the young Marines passed by, not in a group, not in a show, but quietly. A nod, a handshake, a soft sir. Nothing forced, just real Ruiz. The kid who'd joked last week lingered. "We looked you up, sir. You saved a lot of guys." Elliot wiped his thermos with his sleeve. They saved each other. Ruiz nodded, said nothing more, and walked away. Connor stayed, sitting beside Elliot, both staring downrange at nothing in particular. After a long silence, Connor spoke. "You ever think about teaching?" Elliot exhaled. "Spent 40 years trying to forget what I'd teach." "Some of you need to remember." Connor nodded. "That's why I'm listening." Elliot turned, studied him, then stood. Then listened more, talk less. They shared a quiet laugh. Before leaving, Elliot left the fresh ammo box on the bench. Unopened, a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. That afternoon, the range staff added something new. A small brass plate above Lane 9, no bigger than a postcard. It didn't say hero or legend. It just read, "Lane reserved for J. Elliot." He never asked who put it there, never told them to take it down. Some men teach with stories, others with presence. Elliot never bragged, never raised his voice, never asked for recognition. He showed up, fired 30 rounds, and left more impact than 1,000 speeches. He didn't need applause or a spotlight. All he needed was one Marine who looked past the flannel and asked the right question. So, I ask you, have you met someone like Elliot? A veteran who carried history in silence, who let time forget until someone remembered? Share their name, their story. Let the world know who they were before the silence, because the strongest stories don't shout, they wait. If this moved you, hit that subscribe button, share it, and help keep these voices alive. Till next time, if you see an old man at the range, loading his pistol slowly, standing alone, watch his stance. Now, you might be standing next to history.